All right, welcome back to another edition of the Fried Egg Golf Podcast. I am your host, Andy Johnson, and I am joined today by the Fried Egg's very own Meg Adkins. She's joining to talk about the 2024 LPGA season, as well as the recent news of Mollie Marcoux Samaan resigning, stepping down as LPGA commissioner after what I would describe as a tumultuous tenure. So, Meg, thanks for coming on. You've been busy. It's been peak merch season for you.
Peak merch season, yes. Sales galore. Monitoring the pro shop, and busy couple of weeks, but all good stuff.
People are going to be listening to this on Tuesday. Do we have any deals left in the pro shop? Is there anything that our listeners can go snag on Tuesday?
Yes, we take care of our procrastinators at Fried Egg Golf. Our sale goes through the end of Tuesday. Yes, procrastinators rejoice. You can still get 20% off the entire shop with code Black Friday 24. So yes, time is limited, but deals are still there.
Can they still get in that raffle for the free spot at an event?
Oh yeah.
So how's that work?
Yeah, you spend $250. We're gonna put you in a raffle for free entry into one of our events next year. We'll announce that, probably in the next week, 10 days or so. We'll kind of get all the entries in there, and we'll pick a lucky winner. So nothing to do on your end. If you spend $250, we will pull you from that list and get you in. So if you've been eyeing the really good events list for next year and want to have one of those on your radar and need to do some shopping, it's a win-win there.
I mean, yeah, some of the events you get entered into the raffle for, you get good shopping. Obviously, you could. I mean, if you're just looking to upgrade your office, you could buy a print. Or you're looking to upgrade, a room in your house, you could buy a print that gets you over that. But the types of events that you get into the raffle for: Moraine, Essex County Country Club in New Jersey, so New York market. If you wanted to just go to Denver in September, that sounds like a delightful plan. There's Colorado Golf Club. So lots of different options. Skokie Country Club's in that Chicago area one. So if you spend $250, you get a chance to get a free event entry, which is a good deal, I think. So let's get into our LPGA chat here. All right, Meg, what an LPGA season. I mean, I think sneaky, not sneaky at all, actually. In terms of recent years, this was one of the most compelling years. I think we've been begging for this for, superstars to emerge and really establish themselves. And this year we had two really historic years in Nelly, Korda, and Lydia Ko. What was your biggest takeaway from the LPGA season?
Yeah, I mean, we got to talk about the big names winning and playing well at the same time for the most part, which we really haven't gotten to do. We've been, like you said, waiting for kind of the top names to show out, and we got that this year. Which, if you would have told me at the beginning of the season, you'd have first the Nelly streak and then the Lydia kind of, two crowning achievements on her career with the Open win and the Hall of Fame and the Olympic gold. I guess you can combine those into one. I would have been thrilled with that. So to me, you can get into the Nelly Lydia discourse, but it's really tough for me to pick between those two. The streak was historic. It was incredible. It felt inevitable, in the middle of it, oh, she's playing, oh, she's going to win. And that's just so rare and uncommon in professional golf. But then Lydia, maybe that's more of a feel good story for just how long her career has been, from, pretty much child prodigy to now to kind of get the big win at St. Andrews, join, Stacey Lewis and Lorena Ochoa, the only golfers to do that. Then you get, the Olympic gold and the Hall of Fame, whether you value the Hall of Fame as much as an Olympic gold in St. Andrews, who can say? But it's really tough for me to pick between those two. The season will be remembered for Nelly and Lydia.
I think the Hall of Fame qualification, for those that don't know, they use a point-based qualification, and you have to achieve a certain amount of points. And Lydia Ko achieved those this year. And, the fact that she wasn't already a Hall of Famer is crazy to me. Like, had she retired at the beginning of the year and she wasn't in the Hall of Fame, it was insane. So I guess that kind of makes it a huge achievement. It also begs the question of whether that should exist. I think, in a way, the Korda and Co. The way you describe the two, accomplishments, whether it's Nelly winning 5 in a row, that I think it illustrates two of the things that we watch golf for, the reasons we watch golf for, the things that enamor us about golf is all out dominance, which was displayed with Nelly winning 5 in a row. Extraordinarily hard to do. It's extraordinarily hard to win 1 week, let alone 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row. That's insane. That's something that Tiger, the type of dominance that I think made everybody just love Tiger. This idea of this is just something that's not possible to do. And I think the other thing that we love about golf is the long winding road of a golf career. And I think that's the thing that that Lydia's year really illustrated, is that it's not I think with golf more so than other sports, if you compare them to other sports, it's very rare for a basketball player not to be great. They kind of come up and become great, and then they're really great, and then they retire. And I think the difference is golf, you have these these periods of the doldrums, and you get stuck, and it's not just oh, this person's great and they're going to be great every time they step on the court or on the golf course. In golf's case, there are just peaks and valleys, and I think Lydia Ko's career illustrates that. I mean, there were some years where there were some challenges, and there were real questions about, there are times are her parents too involved? Is she too much of a control freak? The all the swing instructor changes and the caddy changes, and then this year kind of I feel cemented her as this all-timer.
Yeah, absolutely. It the Olympics were one thing, she's got all the medals, but the St. Andrews win, that's going to be the image when she retires, whenever that is. That's the lasting image. That and doing it at St. Andrews that, her name and St. Andrews made a lot of sense together. And it was really cool to see her come out of, what had been, it wasn't the tough times were 5 years ago. So it's very recent. She didn't make the Tour Championship last year. So that it was a very, very special season for her. And then, like you said, on the Nelly side, the dominance, you get to see the best of the best, at their peak. And we saw that with Nelly. And, she had her own little mini roller coaster too, probably to, the lows of pretty low lows for her career, outside of maybe the injuries and the blood clot, which is very scary for her. But to have that in the midst of one season, in the midst of, 4 or 5 months or so, the highest of highs, the low lows, and then coming back out of that at the end of the season, you can't really ask for much more in terms of storylines and performances in a golf season.
Yeah. So I got to make you pick. You said you don't want to pick. Which season do you like more? Or which season do you?
I think that I'm going to take Lydia because of St. Andrews and the home of golf, and
and the Olympic
Nelly
gold, the
Olympic gold. Yep. Maybe not so much the Hall of Fame, just my personal opinion, but those other two are pretty sweet. If Nelly's streak happens at a different time in the schedule, I'm probably taking hers. But that beginning part of the schedule, and that, this maybe gets into a larger discussion on the schedule. Think of it that time frame on like the men's calendar, that's like your Riv. That's like, some best part of like before the majors is that time frame when she did this streak. And there wasn't like her wins are fantastic. Like the Shadow Creek one, especially in match play, combo stroke play and match play is huge. But like there's only a handful of really big tournaments that stand out on this schedule and really break through to like the non golf audience. And that was kind of where her lowest point of the season was. So this streak, we will not see that streak again. For a while. And not to like, downplay that at all, but the Open at St. Andrews and Olympic Gold, it doesn't get much better than that.
To me, it seems like there are, and I don't want to be dismissive or talk down to any events, but to me, there seems like there's 3 events in women's golf that really stand above the rest. It's the Olympics, the U.S. Women's Open, and the Women's Open. And those are the big 3. I think the Women's PGA is like right there too. Like maybe just like a half a notch below. And then there's a pretty, drastic fall off to the other 2 majors and then the rest of the events. And this is like, I think like so much of a successful year for the best players in the world, when you're talking about a Lydia Ko, when you're talking about a Lilia Vu, a Nelly Korda, Rose Zhang, I think she's got to obviously like get to winning a major, but is winning one of those 2 annual events or the Olympics, like that's like the pinnacle of the sport. And I think it's a little, obviously like the Masters and men's golf and the US Open and the Open are great tournaments, and they stand a little bit above the PGA. But I do feel like there's a little bit more of a cliff in women's golf. And this comes from someone who follows it, but isn't like, I wouldn't say I'm like extraordinarily invested. It does feel like there is like a clear class system within the majors.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what made it like being on site at Lancaster for the U.S. Women's Open this year, and that Thursday, that the 10 that she had on 12, like it can't, like the build up to that event, like this was the peak Nelly. This was, you still had kind of that inevitable feeling that she was going to come in and win that. And like the air that went out of that place and the air that went out, like honestly for the weekend with her not there, like that, like looking back, you kind of have to wonder, like, what if that 10 doesn't happen? And you can play the what if game, and it's not changing anything. But you wonder if things had gone differently in Lancaster, like would her season have broken through to more of the mainstream audience than it did? What does that look like if that blow up on 12 doesn't happen? Because it is so important for the best players to play their best at those events for the sake of women's golf. There's no Riv, there's no Jack's Place, there's no Bay Hill. You know what I mean? Like even those get, they bring in, past audiences who know those names and all that, and want to see, Arnold back in his day shake hands with the winner and all that. And there isn't that on the LPGA.
I think we can probably talk a little bit more about that when we get into some recent news with the commissioner and some of the LPGA struggles, despite these historic years. I do think like pulling on that string a little bit more, it was definitely felt like a crescendo moment. The streak in Lancaster, it was this meeting of this, red hot player, a historic stretch of play that we had never seen. And I think the thing about it was how quickly the air was out. Like it being the second hole of the tournament.
Yeah.
For her. It wasn't she was in it until Saturday, and it was just the Saturday disaster, and we could just chalk it up as like this was a disaster. And there were a lot of big numbers on that hole, but just to have this big moment, and the moment just so like there was no hope beyond Thursday morning. It was just a deflating moment, I feel like, for everything that had gone into that week, right? All the play that led into it. It was like the spotlight was on and it didn't happen. Which that's the reality of golf, but it did, like, I felt like it deflated the whole event and really like the entire streak.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, it was over by 10 a.m. on Thursday, like before a lot of people had even tuned in or it was even on their radar.
I don't think it was on TV. It was just streaming at that point.
Yeah,
right?
I think you're right. Yeah. It was so strange too, because like, there were like 4 groups waiting. There was like, they had the long wait and you just saw like the car crashes happening ahead of you. It was super windy and it like the whole sequence was so like the air just went out of the whole place. And I followed her, I think, through the rest of that 9, and then came in and like, like there were like actual tears from fans. Like a fellow media member was like, yeah, I overheard this daughter like bawling to her mom, be like, it's over. And the mom was like, it's okay, she's still got tomorrow. And the mom was like, or the daughter was like, you don't know golf, mom, it's over. And it was like that, like literal tears on the ground from people. It was such a bummer because the spotlight really had never been brighter with what she had been doing. And then it was just, boom, over, exit stage left. So yeah, it's too bad. That's in a season where there wasn't much to complain about from the storylines and what happened. Like that's the one what if. That's the big regret, I think, for me.
Yeah, I think like everybody, while it was happening, while the streak was going, and like for the record, I think I'd take Lydia Ko's season just because of I was doing urine review research, and I came across this Victor Hovland quote that was like about like, yeah, you could just give $6 million to the winner of the John Deere, but I'd still rather win Memorial. Mm-hmm. And money's great, but it's like it's about events, and to me, like winning the Women's Open at St. Andrews is, I mean, and winning a gold medal in women's golf, there's like those are probably the two of the biggest ones. I think like some of the women's US Open venues that are coming up. When you talk about like winning at Shinnecock or winning at LACC, like those, winning at Oakmont, like those are types of where it's like, I could only imagine this, but like it's like, yeah, I won a US Women's Open. Oh, where'd you win it? I won it at Oakmont. Oh, right. I won the Women's Open. Where'd you win it? I won it at the Old Course. Like that second half of it is just, it's equal to like, for me, like I won on the LPGA 10 times. Like to me, that like might be where like it might be worth 10 LPGA wins.
Yeah, it has a little bit more oomph than I won the Chevron at Carlton Woods.
Yes, way more oomph. And I think like the LP, like while the Nelly thing was going on, there were so much talk of like what Caitlin Clark's done for the WNBA and women's basketball. This was happening as she was making the March Madness run. So this was like kind of women's college basketball. And now like we zoom out and it's 6 months later and we've seen what she did for the WNBA, which was like completely transformed the sport. And everybody was talking about Nelly and the, kind of what she's done, could she be this Caitlin Clark for the LPGA? And like, she had an incredible year. The best thing she can do is play golf at a high level for the LPGA. But like it still hasn't gotten there. And like, I wonder if what your thoughts are on, like, I think everybody in every women's sport that's not basketball is saying, like, can we have a Caitlin Clark moment, a Caitlin Clark figure that transforms our sport? Do you have a thought on like what that could be for women's golf? Or could it be Nelly?
It's certainly, I mean, she keeps winning. It certainly could be. I think your point is very true. The best thing she can do is keep winning and keep performing at the high level. That's kind of last week when CME, when the season wrapped up, like that was kind of my takeaway is all this growth is fantastic. Like it's great for women's golf, what's happening in basketball and soccer and other women's sports. It's fantastic. But there's also the other side of the coin that that's competition now too. They have way more time on network TV than they did a few years ago. You need your top names to keep performing at the high level to keep eyes on women's golf. So that's, I think I'm with you there. That's kind of the first important key is we cannot, the depth of the tour is great, but I think it will struggle next year if we go back to having 12 first-time winners and leaderboards at majors with names that people aren't familiar with for a lot first-time major winners. It's just very difficult for a niche sport like golf to have that type of parity where you're not even familiar with the first page of the leaderboard unless you're a diehard fan, right?
And the hard thing is that's just the nature of golf, right? I mean, it's the same thing happens with the men's game, right? It's like, why aren't the best players dominating? It's like, well, these other players are really good too. It's not.
And it's something the league, the LPGA or the PGA Tour, they have no control over, right? Like they have no control over how the stars are going to play, whether they're going to hit their stride, whether they're going to struggle next year. So it is a game of chance with how, who's going to show up week in, week out, right? As far as like the Caitlin Clark moment, like my opinion on that is that I don't think, is women's golf ever going to be the leader in that aspect and have a Caitlin Clark, whether that's Nelly and have the super, star breakthrough everything moment that Caitlin Clark has brought to basketball? No, probably not. It's a very niche sport, like I said. And the bigger problem is, they don't have any sort of media rights deal that is going to break into other audiences right now in order to have exponential growth. Right? Like that's, I think, the key. On top of the stars playing well. Okay, one. So say we do get a Nelly and Lydia, and they have a repeat next season, right? Say Lydia Vu comes and plays great next season too, and you've got the stars aligning again. Do we repeat what happened this year, where that doesn't quite break through because it's on Peacock? For like Nelly's round is on Peacock only and not anywhere else. The media deal is, I think, the major hang up. Like Caitlin Clark, that ESPN had put the groundwork in place to have that in front of their massive audience of eyeballs, right? That's not in place for women's golf. They're a tack on to the PGA Tour's rights deal, and they are, fourth on the ticket. They're an afterthought, honestly, for the PGA Tour. They're not a part of the PGA Tour's balance sheet. Therefore, they're an afterthought.
Yeah, I think that was, we can get into Mollie Marcoux Samaan and her resignation that happened this morning of this recording in the pitfalls. But that, I believe, is a holdover from the Juan era, where I think like everybody speaks of the Mike Juan era with like, rose-colored glasses, but I don't necessarily think it was like that much better. And I think that was one of the worst moves they did, was like tie themselves to the PGA Tour's rights deal, because you immediately are tying the most important aspect of your league is tied to a tour that you're the least important aspect of their negotiation. Right. Like, it just the interest, there's no possible way for your interest to actually align there. Getting back to the Caitlin Clark thing, and I think like everybody, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, I think I don't think like it's Caitlin Clark's personality that like pops, that makes people love her. It's really the style of play. It is the way she plays basketball. It is with freedom and this great creativity. It's like to me, very reminiscent of the way Steph Curry plays basketball. Just the passing and the shooting, just the ability to just pull from anywhere. And like, when I think about like golf and Caitlin Clark moments, like there's a very clear Caitlin Clark moment that happened for golf. It just happened in the men's game with Tiger Woods. And if you think about like Tiger Woods and why he was so popular, I think it was the demonstrative playing style. He came out, and it's this gentleman's sport. That's what we were told when I was a kid. It's this, you have to act the right way. You have to play the right way. And I remember I had an older uncle who like hated Tiger Woods because of his fist pumps. And he's like, that's not the way you play golf. But like, it was his playing style. It was the speed, the fist pumps, the demonstrative reactions to shots that led to the popularity. It was the Nike marketing machine, along with the way he played the game. And then obviously the on-course success. To me, like the thing, like Nelly, and this is not Nelly's fault, she's playing golf the way that she's going to be the best golfer. The thing that's missing is that playing style, that magnetism that comes with a playing style that like you watch and you can't take your eyes off it, because you can't wait to see what's next. And to me, when you look at the women's game, they just haven't had that type of player emerge. And it's not Rose Zhang, and Rose Zhang could be a great player, but like, she's never going to pop off the page from that style of play. And until there is a player that really comes and does things differently, that like when you're watching them play, you think this is different. That I think is going to be the struggle, and this has to happen when you talk about these moments. This is any great player, typically, like, you feel that way while you're watching them.
Sure. And probably the last time the LPGA had that was maybe Nancy Lopez, who just came in different, played the game different, won heaps and really, really quickly. That's not Nelly. She's an introvert. She's come out of her shell more this year than she has in probably her whole career combined. And that's probably because she's been freed up. Probably easier for her to come out of her shell after she's had a dominant stretch like she had. And was very, particular and calculated with the moves that she did outside of her comfort zone. The Met Gala, the SI swimsuit, to capture different audiences, right? But the playing style, like she's an introvert on the course. She's an introvert. She's perfectly fine in interviews and whatnot, but I'm with you. That style of play, that whatever you want to call it factor, if that's what you want to call it. Caitlin's got it for sure. And maybe Nancy Lopez was the last like it factor in women's golf. It wasn't Annika. Like Annika, for all her numbers, I don't think charisma is the word you think of when you describe her, right?
I think like men's golf has this issue now too, right? Like Scotty like the conversation was like almost the same about men's golf with Scotty Scheffler. Like until he got arrested, like the arrest like literally changed the discourse around Scotty Scheffler. It made him way more likable. It was a crazy thing. Like, but like that arrest, I think like genuinely changed the trajectory of public interest in Scotty Scheffler, because like people watched how he handled it and they were like, wow, like I can't believe like he didn't say like it. And like since then, I think he's like used that, and he's like opened up a little bit more, but still, I don't think Scotty Scheffler is like an electric personality, right? And like you look at the top of like, men's golf had Tiger, and then Rory became this heir apparent, and I think Rory and Spieth have had this like gravity towards them, but I don't think any player since then has even come close, right? And I think it's just a struggle. Golf is probably like one of the hardest sports to have that charisma, that I don't know what the right word, but that like gravitational pull with fans. It's a very muted sport.
And it's a very polite sport.
Yeah.
And politeness doesn't really, attract a lot of numbers and attention sometimes, right? So I guess what we're saying is we need Officer Gillis to make his way down to Bradenton and figure out how to arrest Nelly Korda. So that's what we're going for.
Officer Gillis in his pants.
Yep.
All right, let's take a quick break here to talk about our partner, Red Rooster. It's time to wake up your gift game this holiday season with Red Rooster Golf. Right now, they have a great deal. These gloves, so much customer satisfaction. This was our Club TFE member gift, their gloves. We had like a fried egg branded glove. I got texts from like so many people. I got a text from somebody that's made it into like pretty deep in the USAM match play who said, is there any way I could buy a bunch of these? Because this is my favorite glove I've ever worn. So they right now have a buy one, get one deal. A BOGO. That's what I think all the kids call a BOGO deal. Buy one glove, get the second 50% off. I guess that's not a buy one, get one. It's a BOGO, but it's 50% off. So buy one glove, get the second 50% off with your exclusive code 50fried. This is a great stocking stuffer if you buy somebody golf gloves. My mom used to do that way back in the day. I'd open up my stocking. There'd be like 3 golf gloves. They'd go in the bag. I'd have golf gloves for like, I don't run through golf gloves, so I'd have golf gloves for like the year. Also, you need to order by December 13th to get your gifts on time. They have some other stuff. They have leather glove wallets. This keep your glove flat and fresh. They have new hats. They have belts. They have other stuff on there. Go to redroostergolf.com and check out those deals there. Let's get back to Meg. Let's talk about the news of the day. Mollie Marcoux Samaan is no more as commissioner. She stepped down as commissioner. I think like just generally over the course of her commissionership, it's been a rocky road. I think there's been a lot of quiet behind the scenes. Anytime she's brought up, in my experience with people involved, this is a disaster. She's not good at her job. I think like when we talk about ways to grow the LPGA sport, is maybe some of those quiet conversations need to be more public. But she steps down, and it seems like I'd like to hear your perspective. This was an accumulation of a lot of disappointing things, but maybe the final nail in the coffin was the Solheim Cup bus disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are a few months past that. We still don't know like how why that miscalculation was made, what type of compensation or whatnot was done for fans. Like there were no answers. And that was just, it was very apparent in person in that press conference at Solheim that this was not leadership, right? Coming from her. This was not a great leader. And right, like it's been rocky from the jump. I think, like, looking back, you didn't know it at the time. And hindsight is always 2020, but her 100-day like listening period to start off her tenure was the worst thing you could have done. Like the worst. This is 2021. Little did we know, like, the women's sports momentum, like the train was getting rolling, like picking up speed. And you've got someone who, for their first 3 months, listened. And I don't like, I get that. I get wanting to learn. I get that you didn't come from this, you came from academia. You were an athletic director before, and you had to learn on the job. But that having that 100 days of nothing, I think you missed the boat. If you had someone, with experience who knew how to do the job come in, and not, like, sports are very different, but I look at the NWSL. I've brought up Jessica Berman before, the commissioner of that league, who came from the NHL and came into a debacle of a league with no player trust, scandals, teams folding, and got to work day one because she knew what the job was. Mollie Marcoux Samaan did not know how to do this job. So that's, I hope that's top of mind as this global search commences, is that you have to have somebody ready to go day one, because you had the wrong person in position during a period where women's growth has never grown as much as it has. So that's too bad looking back.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's very easy to poke hole. I think, like, I haven't been impressed over the years in terms of, I think, like, the biggest thing is just the lack of vision, like the lack of, this is where we're going, and this is, I think, like, when you look at the LPGA, there has to be a fresh perspective, somebody that comes in and says, listen, I know we've been doing things this way, and we're going to continue to do some of these things. But if we want to reach where we believe, like, and like, I think, like, there's no reason why women's golf couldn't be the most popular professional golf played. It's not like there's some, like, dominant force that's holding this from happening. This is a real possibility. And thinking, all right, how do we get there is, to me, what has to happen. I'm curious if you were going to create a couple of points of emphasis that you'd like to see from the new commissioner, and what they would stress on, like, trying to bring the LPGA to a higher level of fandom and viewership. What would be the things that you would want to see stressed?
Yeah, and I think, Mollie, what I'm looking for and what needs to be stressed is the willingness to make bold moves. Mollie didn't make any bold moves. Sure, there was, the purse growth and all that, which, the numbers are great, but, like, compared to what has been going on in other leagues and other women's sports, like, it's kind of the bare minimum, honestly. So willingness to make the bold move, and willingness to differentiate yourself from the PGA Tour. What has the LPGA done to differentiate itself from a tour, from the PGA, that has struggled, that has experienced a schism, that has disengaged many of its fans? Not much. The LPGA hasn't done much. It's kind of just doing the same thing, but in a smaller scale. So bold moves. I think the first one that comes to mind is you got to get your product to other eyeballs. I'll bring up the NWSL again. I know like right now it's got a big CBS deal and has more eyeballs on it than ever before. Not that long ago.
That's the Women's Soccer League.
Yeah. National Women's Soccer League. So not long ago, their teams were playing in high school stadiums. Like here in Kansas City, not that long ago, they were playing in high school stadiums. They were broadcasting their games on Twitch. You know what I mean? But that's how they started. Like they got on Twitch and got to different audiences that way. I think you have to be in control of how your product is distributed. And that's not the case right now. So that's a big change to separate yourself and to get out from under the PGA Tour umbrella. But I think that has to happen. The other thing that, is very attractive to me is the schedule and getting a more coherent schedule at more interesting venues. If you look at ways that the LPGA can differentiate itself, it plays a very different game than the men on a very different scale, which opens up many different courses to you. The schedule is, record-breaking money, fantastic. But to what we spoke about earlier, what's memorable? 3 or 4 events, right? So those are my top 2.
I think
the
they share this issue, right, with men's golf, right? I think men's golf, one of the biggest problems with men's golf right now is like, how do we make more than 5 events a year relevant? I mean, I think this is the same problem that tennis is starting. I think like with this modern era of television, on-demand choice, social media, and YouTube, like when you combine all these different platforms and all the choices that people have for their time, everybody's trying to get people's time. One of the things that all of golf has to confront is how do we make more than 4 or 5 events on either side, men's and women's, relevant?
Yeah, it's not easy.
No.
Like and negotiating a new media deal is not easy. Neither of these are easy things to do, but you haven't done much on that front. I mean, nothing's been done with the media rights deal. You added some ESPN Plus streaming this year, but you are handcuffed. The Mike One deal, you have no flexibility, right? So how you get out of that? Like, one, just getting out of that is not easy to do, and 2, like going on your own path is not easy at all. But it's easier today than it was 3-4 years ago. That's for sure.
I think just to zoom in on this contract and why it's so bad for the LPGA. This is like why it's bad. So they're lumped in. The PGA Tour negotiated the contract, and they are basically a tag along on the PGA Tour's contract. If you compare that to college golf negotiated on its own with Golf Channel. Golf Channel got this college golf package, and they have this college golf, the NCAA championships, and they're broadcasting it. And it was like, oh, wow. Like, but there's no other college golf on TV at the point they get this. But they realize like, oh, we made this big investment in college golf in the NCAAs. You know what we have to do because we have this property? We have to cover more college golf. So there's more college golf programming today. I don't know how many years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, when they got the deal for the college golf championships, when it became a big part of their spring programming. Today, there is way more college golf on Golf Channel because they have the rights. And it's like, oh, we need to cover this because we paid for these rights. who paid? They paid the PGA Tour for the PGA Tour rights. It's not like, obviously the PGA Tour rights is a huge part of Golf Channel, but the LPGA just being a tag along, like the Golf Channel is beholden to the PGA Tour. That's who they negotiated this rights deal with. Golf Channel works with the NCAA, so they want to promote college golf more, so they show more college golf. Like, this is exactly why they need. You have to have that one-to-one relationship with your rights partner.
Yes, yeah, it's insane not to have that the a one-to-one relationship there. Like, you cannot be a professional sports league and have somebody else in charge and in control of that. Yes, that's why that's my number one. And I think that maybe makes the number two, the venues. Like, if you have a new contract, if you have new avenues for, the schedule and the events to be shown, that's a lot more attractive to some courses. That's a lot more attractive to some sponsors to know they're not going to be tape delayed, to know they're not going to be on Peacock for 2 hours and then to CNBC for an hour and then to NBC for an hour and a half. And like the third one, the marketing of this league needs a complete and total revamp, in my opinion. And like, when we talk about the snafus and debacles of Mollie Marcoux Samaan's tenure, like, the vision was not there, but she did harp on marketing and growing that team within the LPGA. And I mean, that's where they've failed this year, was marketing Lydia and Nelly and what they did this year. They around this time last year was when they announced that big deal with Naomi Osaka's company to like promote the athletes and everything. Mm-hmm. We got absolutely nothing from that. And last week she announced that internally they were going to do some player marketing moving forward. So like, you're growing your internal team, you're going outside. Like, I don't think Naomi Osaka, I don't think that like was a cheap deal. I don't think they got that on sale. I think it was probably pretty expensive. So I think it needs a complete revamp in how you present this league, which is a trailblazing league, which has run for 75 years. This year coming up is their 75th year, while other women's sports leagues have folded, renamed, rebranded, all this. The LPGA for 75 years has been doing this through leadership and innovation from its founders early on. And you got to tell that story, especially in its 75th year coming up.
Yeah, I think the marketing leaves a lot to be desired, but I think like, what are we marketing is like a real question. Like, what is it we're marketing, and how are we going to differentiate our sport? And I think in general, when you look at the future of the LPGA, it has to be focused on differentiating the product from men's professional golf. This is how we're different, and how we're actually more watchable. The shots are like the golf course matters more. The features of a golf course matters more. We're more accurate. So there's strategy on holes. But I think like really where I think like the biggest opportunity is broadcast innovation. This is something like, could you explore showing golf completely different? Showing golf a completely different way than men's golf shows golf. That to me would be something that would be on the top of my thing that I would want to invest time, energy, and resources into, is what if we showed golf in a different manner? The other thing that I would really stress is like pace of play. It just cannot be. I find myself a lot of nights. I watch a ton of golf at night now. When after I put my daughter to sleep, I record basically all live golf, and then I pop it on. And I find even with a DVR, I struggle with just the pace of women's golf. The pace of play is like a real issue, and I know it's boiling. It's like I think like it's hitting a point where like top players are speaking out about it, where we might actually get some changes. With Charlie Hull saying like they should lose their tour card. With like Nelly Korda speaking out, like that's what you need. You need the top players speaking out about it. But this is something that has to change, like the adherence of like and understanding how it goes back to this product standpoint. Like we want to show people that there is a better golf product, and we have it. And part of that is got to be the pace of shots, and we see it like people like to see a lot of shots. They want to be like, they do not want to watch somebody get ready for a shot for a minute and a half. That just can't be. That's not good TV.
And they would like to see the drama of penalties, of slow play. Like it adds to the broadcast as well. That's got to be top of mind. I'm hopeful that something changes with that during the off season, and that there's a new policy in place for next year. But yeah, and to your point about the players speaking out about slow play, more of that, please. More of speaking out on things you're dissatisfied with, things you'd like to see change. If something changes with slow play, maybe they will see that, oh, when I speak my mind, I do have a say and I do get listened to. Because from the marketing side of things, it is a two-way street. If they have a new marketing, plan or whatever for the 75th season, like a lot of that's, in order to be successful, is on the players too. Opening up, being open to trying new things, speaking out more, whatever the case may be. Like that's an important piece of the puzzle too.
Yeah, I echo that. All right, let's take a quick break to talk about our partner, Stripe. Stripe serves millions of businesses of all sizes around the world. In fact, 1% of the global GDP is powered by Stripe. We have been proud users of Stripe for years. They were really one of the first technology platforms that I installed. The way we installed it was so we could take payments. They help small businesses like ours. They also help massive businesses, enterprises such as AMC, Alaska Airlines, BMW, DoorDash, Hertz, Instacart, Lyft, MindBody, Marriott, OpenAI, Postmates, the PGA, Salesforce, Squarespace, Toyota, WordPress, and Zoom. Those are all massive companies that use Stripe, but I can speak from personal experience. Stripe has been a valuable business partner for us for years. Stripe has a number of different products. They have the general plugin that lets you take payment. They also have a billing platform. Stripe Billing helps more than 300,000 businesses. That's more than anybody else grow with advanced billing software to handle even the most complex business models. Whether the company needs flat rate, monthly subscriptions, usage-based billing, invoicing, or anything in between, Stripe Billing helps businesses grow with smarter recurring revenue management. If you are looking to learn more about Stripe, visit stripe.com. Big thanks to Stripe, and let's get back to Meg Adkins. Let's get back to positives here. Do you have a favorite moment from 2024? One that particularly stands out? It could be either personal or
yeah, I think like from the golf side of things, Yuka Sasso's 5-iron at Lancaster on Sunday on the 15th. Mm-hmm. Like that shot to kind of just seal the deal. The ball was like way above her feet. It was like a cut, she cut it in there when like it was easier to play a draw in there. I think that was, she birdied that. And then 16, the short par 4 was right after, drove the green there, birdied that. And then she's, that was like 4 birdies in 5 holes and sealed the deal. But like that shot, I was like, that was, you don't see like 5-irons like that very often anymore, especially on like the men's side of thing. To your point about like differentiating the games a little bit, like that shot, I will stick with me for a while. Yuka, she may only show up and be in contention a couple times each year, but when she does, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, that's like a great example of how how the women's game can be so compelling because of like the venues that they can play. Lancaster was a spectacular women's open venue. Lots of fans, but the golf course was really starred. And like, I think like Lancaster's a really good golf course, but like, by no means would I say it's like great. I think it's like, listen, like I'm not trying to belittle, but like, it is really good. I would love to play Lancaster on a regular basis, but it's not somewhere I'd like get on a plane and go play. And like, you think about the women's open and where it's going and where like the types of golf courses that women's tournaments can be held at. It's extraordinary because like Lancaster is an example of a club like that's it's not unrealistic that you could have 10 to 15 LPGA events a year at courses at the level of Lancaster. It is a really good, it's like, without a doubt, one of the 300 best golf courses in America, like one of the 200 probably. It's between 100 and 200, I would say. But like, it's not unrealistic to think like, okay, like we could have and I don't know about like the memberships at all these like wanting regular events, but like we could pop in and have a women's event at a course like Quaker Ridge. We could have a women's event at a course like, I don't know, Skokie in Chicago. We could have it, like these are the types of golf courses that are available to the women's game. And like you mentioning Lancaster, just like, I mean, it made me just think back to that week and how much like enamorment there was with like the women, the style of play and how it interacted with the golf course and how that could be a regular occurrence on the LPGA.
Yeah, the courses do a disservice for how the best women play the game. The normal courses on their schedule, on their calendar. And then you have a Lancaster pop up and you're like, "Oh my God, this course fits their game perfectly. It's challenging them in all the right areas." And that's what it can be. Like there's so much room for improvement. Like if you're looking, if you're a candidate, if you're part of this global search, like that's one of the big pros is there's so much room for improvement and so much potential there. Like it's not like this league is tapped out on everything they're doing. Like there's so much that can be done. And yeah, courses are absolutely top of the list.
Well, and it's also like, why not go down to Austin?
Sure.
Like, why don't we have an event in Austin? There's tons of corporations. The PGA Tour left by all signs. Like the Austin wanted pro golf, and the PGA Tour just left. Also, like I think about like the Dow Team Championship. It's at Midland, Michigan. In Midland, Michigan, and it's because Dow is right there, right?
Right. Their headquarters is right there. Yeah.
But like somebody needs to say to Dow, like, listen, like the golf course just isn't up to the standards that we have. Midland Country Club is just not up to snuff. These are the best women in the world. We need to host it at a world-class golf course. And I think one of the things is like that it like ticket like at an event. I could be wrong about this, but I can't imagine that like on course the ticket revenue and on course revenue is like so great that it like pushes anything over the edge. Why don't you approach somewhere like Forest Dunes or something like that and say, hey, we want to host this at the Loop or reversible golf course? Like all of a sudden then it's like, okay, we have a team championship on a reversible golf course. We're going to play the golf course on Thursday and Saturday this way. and Friday and Sunday this way. And that all of a sudden has a lot more appeal. Like, these are the things that could be done. There needs to be somebody that thinks about them on, like, how do we make more than 4 or 5 events stand out? And one of the 5 events in women's golf, one of the probably 4 events in women's golf, which we didn't mention yet, is ANWA. Arguably the biggest event. And why is it the biggest event? Because of the venue.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's that's it moved a major. It bumped a major from its spot that it had held. That's the power of these courses. Like, sure, Augusta is Augusta, but that's the power of going to important venues with name recognition that people want to see the best of the best play on. And if you're not asking and having those conversations with these courses, you're doing the whole league a disservice.
The other thing I'd love to see, and I think that the tour dabbled a little bit with this with like Monday matches, but like the LPGA schedule is such that there's no reason that you couldn't create like a select series where you brought like 8 people to really fascinating golf courses around the world. And it was this like small series of events. It's almost, they're exhibitions, but they're matches. And you could do one at like, just throwing out there, like Bandon Dunes. They go play Pacific Dunes, and there's 4 matches that are played there. And maybe you do a second day so the travel makes sense. And you do it at Old McDonald. Again, this would require having a relationship with your broadcast partner, right? So you could get these things televised. Maybe you go and there's a match at Sunningdale, maybe when you're in the UK swing, like maybe there's like, these are the types of things that I think, like, if I was running the LPGA, I'd be thinking about, is like, how do we get our product out there in new ways, different ways, like fun ways? We've seen the success. Like, how did ANWA rise so quickly? Well, obviously they have the Masters and Augusta National behind it, but like a lot of the reason that people like that event is maybe the biggest annual women's event.
Yeah.
From a viewership standpoint, and it all revolves like they're watching amateur golfers who, many of whom they don't know, play a golf course. So like, how do we like take some key themes from that and build from there? And like some of these golf courses, I bet would be very amicable to them filming a couple matches for a couple days, and like, that's a great TV product. Sign me up for that.
Yeah. How about a dynamic postseason? That's missing on the men's side of things too. Get creative that way. Go match play for your postseason. Get it not at a Tiburon. Like, let's get away from that for our final, event. It's there. But your point is that none of that happens unless you own how your product is distributed and presented. And we have seen like we have the Grant Thornton coming up. That's probably the only thing you're going to get from the PGA Tour is a silly season, 30-person thing at Tiburon. Like that, if you're holding out hope that you're going to have Nelly and Charlie Hull invited to TGL, it's not going to happen. If you're holding out hope they're going to be in the next match, not going to happen. If you're holding out hope that there's going to be a mixed President's Cup, not going to happen. Like, the waiting game and waiting for that type of stuff that needs the PGA Tour to agree to do is not going to happen. Like, how many
they need to
we've learned our lesson there.
They need to focus on creating things that the PGA Tour and other things want to be a part of.
Yes.
And they don't have enough of those types of things, because like their biggest properties are extremely serious competitions that you can't change. Correct.
Yeah. So, we got to get outside the box and own own something from how the product looks and is presented.
All right, 2025's kind of around the corner. What are one or two things that you're most looking forward to?
Yeah, like I said, the 75th season, which should be talked about, and it's a big deal. Like, there's not very many women's sports leagues that have been around for 75 years. I'm interested to see what they do around that. Like, when we talk about, I mentioned like there's no tournament. Like, you got Jack and Arnie and all on the men's side of things. Like, why isn't there like a tournament that, Beth Daniel runs or whatever? Like, there's a lot that can be done bringing back and the people that made the LPGA what it is. I'd like to see something done there. As far as like tournaments go, I'm pumped for the Open at Royal Porthcawl, just to hopefully get some insane weather in Wales again, like we did. It was for insane the
when the seniors were there.
Yeah, that was some of like the most entertaining golf I've watched in the past couple of years. It was so good to watch. Erin Hills for the U.S. Women's Open. We haven't seen that since the men's U.S. Open. I think that will be a much more intriguing tournament if there's some wind, the wind that you didn't get when the men were there, right? International Crown is back. It's in Korea this year. So they're going to be in South Korea during the fall Asian swing. So makes a lot of sense, as there was a long layoff with the International Crown with COVID to the first one back was at San Francisco at Harding Park. I think it makes a lot of sense to take it to South Korea. It's like 30 minutes from Seoul. I think that will be like very cool to watch the way that is received over there from the crowds and the excitement around that. And then we'll see Frisco for the first time for the KPMG Women's PGA. So that will be kind of the first of many, many, many majors down there. So those are the highlights. Absolutely.
That's great. All right, Meg, we'll have you on I don't know, sometime soon as the LPGA kicks off. That was a fun 2024, and look forward to hearing more from you in 2025.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy.
All right. Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fried Egg Golf Podcast. Big thanks to PJ Clark for editing and producing this podcast. If you're looking for a great gift for the holiday season, other than the ones we talked about at the top, check out Club TFE. This is our annual membership. If somebody's really into golf, I guarantee that they will really love this gift. We have tons and tons of written content in there. And one of the great things is we're 2 years in now. If you give the gift of Club TFE, there is a 2-year backlog of content you have to siphon through. Tons of great golf course write-ups in there and videos as well. So if you are looking for a gift for a golf lover, check out Club TFE. It's $120 for the year. You can sign up at thefriedegg.com/membership. All right, we'll be back later this week with another episode. And thanks for tuning in. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving.